Welcome everyone to episode 12 of When Tomorrow Comes. We have a stellar lineup today. We've got Sarah Bevan from London First. She's the Programme Director of Planning and Development. We've got Clara Blagden, we've got Ian Gallagher, and we have Ashley Kirkall from Iceni. Hi guys, how are we?
Hiya.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on. Now, Clara, you've written an article for us this week on the sort of, I guess, the post-lockdown high street. For the benefit of those that haven't read it, do you want to just give us a quick overview of the points you were making in your article?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Ian. Well, most people will probably know, but non-essential retail is due to open on the 15th of June, and outdoor markets and car showrooms, they've been able to open since the 1st of June. So the article was really just looking at what our post-lockdown high street and retail more generally will look like in the short and the longer term. The Prime Minister is encouraging more people to go back and support struggling shops, as long as it is safe to do so. And the Secretary of State has also suggested that he might be bringing in measures to allow a much greater level of flexibility between uses in town centres. So I think a lot of people, including the government and me, are keen for some level of normality to return as soon as possible. I guess what we don't know is how long it will take to return to normal and what normal now is. So unfortunately, I think that despite any measures that the government introduce, the recovery process is probably going to be quite gradual and take a while to get back to anything that is considered normal. We might see a greater shift to online shopping, but equally, on a positive sense, you might see a shift of people shopping more locally. So the article really just explains this in a bit more detail.
Okay, Sarah, I'm guessing you must have had lots of dialogue with numerous of London First members. What's the sort of messaging that you've had back from your members, and what would you like government to be doing?
Well, there's two strands to this, really. Firstly, how we support businesses to reopen whilst adhering to social distancing rules. It's really challenging for businesses like restaurants and cafes to be able to maintain the 2 metre distancing and still have enough covers running at any time in order to make a profit. So what we really want to see is a relaxation of licensing and planning. Now, I've seen a matrix recently of all of the different elements of the licensing and planning regulations that feed into what restricts a business's operations. And it's so complex that there's no way the government can bring this in time for businesses to benefit over the summer months. So what we are calling for is a similar direction to what's happened with construction activity, whereby the government gives a clear direction to local authorities that they shouldn't seek to enforce any breaches of planning conditions or licensing, where businesses are putting more tables and chairs outside, extending their hours of operation in order that they can have lower levels of activity over a longer period of time. Okay.
Ian, is there any sort of divergence of views, or is it a commonality of views, or what you're seeing in Scotland?
Yeah, so we're obviously a few weeks behind up here. Our glorious leader isn't probably going to allow the same kind of shops reopening and businesses until about mid-July. However, I think I've been taking some soundings from quite a few of the retail agents we work with, and it's quite interesting. I mean, just kind of echoing what people are saying, but one really good example I was given was Next. Next are planning to open 25 stores next week nationally. When you think they've got 600 stores, that kind of tells you all you need to know about their plans. And I think they'll just see how it goes with staff, with the social distancing measures in place, and with customer interest and footfall, and probably take it from there. I think the majority of retailers will probably take that approach. And the other thing I think from our perspective that's very interesting is the stores they are opening are the larger out-of-town stores, where it's obviously a lot easier to implement social distancing. So I think we all know it's going to be challenging for a lot of these businesses, and it's just going to be a case of them trying to test the water somewhat in this first phase of reopening.
Ashley, the term high street covers sort of a multitude of sort of shopping experiences for many people. It's almost a generic term. We've spoken before about how this has perhaps helped with a renaissance of the local high street. Do you have any thoughts on it from that perspective?
Yeah, I definitely think that this is going to help the local high streets. I think that already people have become more dependent on their local high streets. We're working from home more, you're spending more time in your local area and using those sort of local facilities. But I also think that what people have probably realised is that there's a lot that they can get on their doorstep, or they can order online and get it delivered straight to their door. And so, you know, the need to maybe kind of make an effort to travel into let's just take the main destination of Oxford Street as an example, is significantly reduced. And I think that that's going to be an area that's going to struggle, those kind of big primary high streets that have a lot of kind of draw. I think there will be less reason for people to go to them. And, you know, if we take, for example, Oxford Street again, a lot of it has come from kind of tourists visiting the area, and there's certainly not going to be an influx of that anytime soon. So yeah, I think it's good for the local high streets, but going to be challenging for those kind of larger scale and more kind of primary shopping areas.
Yeah, I don't know whether Clara or Sarah, whether you wanted to comment on that. It does strike me that you know, some of the big sub-regional shopping centres that we've seen be so, you know, successful in the last decade are pretty cavernous places if there's one man and a dog rattling around in them, and it does feel like they will throw up different challenges to the local high street.
I would totally agree. I think, you know, this is a real opportunity for local high streets, whilst everyone is so, you know, focused on their immediate locality. I spoke to London councils yesterday, and they said that when the metropolitan centres open next week, they're expecting them to be really busy. Obviously, that's easier to control with the likes of a Westfield, where you can close the car parks if it looks like it's getting too busy. But with a centre like Kingston, where you've got lots of entry points, obviously that's really challenging. And we are really concerned about the West End. You know, I think this has turned everything on its head really in terms of town centres, and it's the West End that we're most concerned about, when you don't have that footfall from workers, and won't have for several months, and tourists aren't expected to come back for months. You know, it's there just isn't the demand there. And this is where we need the planning flexibility, that we can have more agile change of use between uses. You know, for an example, in the West End, apparently Hamleys is really struggling to find somewhere to store its stock, because the stock just kept flowing and flowing, and it's run out of warehouse space. So it's looking at a local nightclub which can't open for a while, to be able to store things there. And obviously that, strictly speaking, that needs a temporary change of use. But this is where planning needs to be a lot more agile in order to facilitate all these different neighbours helping each other.
I absolutely agree with all of that you've said, and Ashley, and there might actually be a difference, kind of what you said as well, but say between centres like Manchester or Birmingham, where people can drive in a lot more easily compared to the West End, and people not wanting to get on public transport. And Ian's already touched on the fact that out of centre shopping parks may see an increase in footfall. They already have been, because of the social distancing reasons. In terms of covered shopping malls, that's an interesting one, because people can drive there, which hopefully will encourage more people to go there. But actually, because they're covered rather than outdoor space, will people feel a bit weird about being in such a closed environment with other people at the moment? I'm not too sure. But I agree that flexibility is absolutely key. I guess the only thing that we just need to be careful on is that whilst the use might be appropriate, we need to make sure that there's still no impacts on amenity, so smell and noise and everything. So whether we have to introduce sort of a prior approval process, just to make sure that all the technical elements are all okay, as well as the use.
And Sarah, again, from your perspective, is there any sort of circumstantial evidence from your members of different types of operators potentially looking to take space in town centres, who can see advantages of this, you know, transition, this hiatus?
Yes, certainly. I mean, you know, I think there will be more demand for co-working space in local centres, as opposed to it being focused in the centre. As I say, neighbours will need to help each other in terms of restaurants being able to expand, storage. There's all kinds of different ways, and for these, where this will work successfully is in the areas where there is a bid or a town centre manager that can kind of help and put neighbours in touch with each other. And that's one of the things that we called for in our High Streets Manifesto that we launched in January, to have. It's so important for local authorities to invest in a town centre manager, be that in any part of London or the rest of the UK.
Ashley, anything you want to add to that?
No, I think that seems like a really, really good idea, and certainly one that would help kind of local centres to maybe kind of get together and think of kind of what the best uses and options are for them. And I know that in my sort of local high street, there's a lot going on there at the moment. There's a lot of places that are open, but equally there are some that have been shut since the very beginning of lockdown. And there are questions around, well, could they have been utilised as a different use or for a different, slightly different purpose? That means that it's activating the high street throughout the whole time and helping to keep other businesses going. So yeah, I think I echo the points on flexibility as well there.
Ian, this is a difficult question, which is why I'm putting it to you, because it means that other people can be grateful I've not put it to them. In the same way as we can expect, retailers to perhaps make decisions on how they have to replan space in the short term. Is there any sense that retailers will also think about changing their formats or their product lines so that it's more accessible for customers?
Yeah, absolutely, Ian. And I think a really good example actually was something I was speaking to an agent the other day was Greggs, which is close to my heart. And Greggs are going to have real challenges in so many of their stores because if you think about browsing, someone picks up a sandwich, they put it back down. How do you control that? So I think you're going to see a lot more of kind of behind counter, everything behind counter, and a lot more controlled environment. And once they change to that, I suppose the thing is that it's unlikely they'd ever change back. You can see in the medium to long term even, because ultimately once a retailer goes through a fit out change. I mean, you think about what a lot of the supermarkets have done with the screens, kind of short term. You can't ever really see that changing back now. So
I could have a renaissance of the 1930s sort of shop counter, with everything in jars on shelves behind. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, I think absolutely a lot of them will have to look at that, just because if it means getting to reopen, they're all going to have to adapt. And I suppose it comes back to that thing about the retailers just testing the market to see the interest, because ultimately if there isn't the footfall there, then that's going to be the challenge for them, as everyone has been saying. I think another interesting point in this is food and beverage, which I think Sarah touched on. And what we've got to remember with a lot of food and beverage businesses, excuse me, a lot of them are sometimes on the edge of profitability or not. And it's all very well them having a social distancing regime in place, and more outside seating and for eating and drinking. But if they can't make money even with these measures, then it's going to be a real issue. I mean, I think, and it's where planning something is, is it radical enough? In Glasgow, someone came up with an idea of a pretty radical idea of glazing an entire part of Argyle Street for a number of restaurants and bars, which would have been a pretty significant investment. But perhaps it has to get as radical as that, as Sarah has said, in terms of if we want to be supporting these businesses as they come out of this really challenging time.
I think one other way to encourage footfall and make people feel safe is to have car-free days in town centres. There's a campaign at the moment for Soho to be car-free for a temporary period. But I think, that's something that all town centres could roll out, just to give people a bit more space rather than being confined to the pavements.
Thank you for that, Sarah. I'm conscious that we're probably approaching the end of our time slot. And we've spoken primarily about sort of the short-term initiatives, but maybe we can ask you to come back and talk about sort of more forward-thinking ideas on another time, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
All right. Look, thanks everybody for joining us today. Appreciate your time, and for those watching, we look forward to seeing you next time. All the best.
Thank you.
Cheers.